good angle.
It is.
Well, now that I look at you, I can't even see you sitting over there. And I'm like, yeah, girl, because you know.
Here you are. I'm
Oh,
coming.
Cabbage Patch Kids. Yes.
Take you back, don't it?
Doesn't it? What black little young girl did not have a Cabbage Patch Kid?
Okay, hello everyone. How y'all doing out there?
We're looking at that one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We're here. I'm just trying to get us up on this screen. So give me 1 second.
Oh, I'll be able to see, so I can know which fat pockets I gotta hide.
Let's see. That unplug something. This thing always gives me. Come on. Yeah, see? This is
Is it plugged up?
yeah. Oh no, it unplugged. I'm wondering.
I know this because I didn't say a lot yet. There we go. So whatever you did, you did it and then it undid it. So it was white and then. I think you have to do it.
There I go.
Got it? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. Let's see. So we streaming both. We doing.
I don't know how to do all that. What we're not gonna do.
We already live, girl. All right. Let's see. Right there.
I took my butt. I just saw your booty.
Be careful, this is a flip. So, we're here. Hosanna for Youth
Yes.
is here tonight.
Yes.
Oh my
exciting.
goodness.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh my
My
goodness.
hands are holy.
Yes.
Sorry, yes.
So listen, Hosanna for Youth is here tonight. We have a special guest with us. Y'all might as well get used to the face and know the name, because this is what? The TV TakeOver.
Yes! And you got it right. People like the TakeOver TV, thank you for getting it right.
Oh no, I got it the first time, because for you all that don't know, Hosanna for Youth was invited to her to the TV TakeOver.
Yes.
It was amazing. I post the actual footage.
Yeah.
I will reshare it again.
I was just gonna say this is probably a really great opportunity to allow folks to see how amazing that show was.
Oh my goodness.
It was hard to edit that show. Like we had almost 4 hours of footage, and I had to try to squeeze it as much as I could. And the shortest I could get into was 2 hours, but it was 2 hours of just amazingness. It was women talking, speaking their truth, having moments. We had someone that was supposed to go for an event. She said, "Bump that event. I need this. This is healing for me."
Yeah.
So we definitely have to be sure that one.
But listen, let me tell you, while I was there, and the reason I reached out to you. Okay. First of all, you all know that Expose the Conversation, a Survivor's Story, is our platform to bring education, awareness, resources, and support to our community about incest, molestation, and rape.
Yes.
Hosanna exists because this little small secret that we keep, it's almost like it tears up everything. It's like the Tasmanian devil.
Yes.
In my own life, it just tore up all kind of things, and I had to get myself together.
Yeah.
And we created this organization so that no other girl, boy, adult have to feel that they have to go through this alone.
Yes.
We provide so many resources and support to our community so that, we like to say, and I'm going to be honest with you.
Okay.
Tell them your name.
Right.
I said TakeOver, the TV TakeOver, and I didn't say.
Right. So guys, my name is Jodie, and I am the owner of the TV TakeOver Network. I'm also a producer where we create some really amazing shows. And Jodie, or JD, or Jay.
Okay.
And hello to my folks over there that's watching me from My Life Rural all the way live as well. Thank you guys.
But listen, I have to give a shout out to the lady that made all this happen, that collaborated and hooked us up.
Absolutely.
2 times for my girl Crystal Chanel.
Yes.
Thank you.
Press release marketing. We love you,
all
girl.
day, all day.
Yes.
So I had to do that.
Yes.
But listen, while we were sharing
Yes.
on your platform,
Yes.
and I was sitting over there and I looked at the video, I kind of giggled because, girl, I was over there posing.
Right. You were looking cute. I'm not gonna lie.
I was over there just carrying on like I was in my own world, and it probably was, when I'm in an environment that I've never been, I always kind of,
right,
until I get to know everybody better, and then I open up and you be like, damn, who is this girl? But I want to say when we started talking, and we were there,
right,
and you shared,
yeah,
and when you shared, I was like, wow. So you have your own story.
I do.
Talk to me.
Wow. So, I actually decided when I started my network and started to do different shows that I was going to use this platform as the first time telling anyone about my experience. So, the first time that I actually came out and spoke about it publicly is on one of my podcasts, Podcast These Nuts, episode 6. I think I actually put the link. And I shared my story of my sexual abuse. And in sharing that story, at the end of that, I felt the best that I've ever felt about that experience. So my story is that I was sexually abused by my aunt for well over a decade. And this is my dad's sister. I never told anyone. I have to say that when you go through the experience of being sexually abused, and there's different types of sexual abuse, and we discussed that as well, where you have the sexual abuse where you're groomed, and it's almost a positive experience, if you can even say that. But then you have the sexual abuse where it's really aggressive and more of rape. My sexual abuse was grooming. It started out when I was very, very, very young. And how she kind of broke me in is she would appease to my desire to always want to take care of. I've always, ever since I could remember, always like to take care of something, whether it's an animal, cabbage patch.
Leave my baby.
Right? I've always just had the desire to take care of, and I think she saw that. So how that sexual abuse started is when she would come out of the shower, I remember she would ask me to powder her private part. I didn't think anything of it because at that point you don't really connect that this is something that's private, or those conversations were never really had.
Which needs to be had a lot.
Yes, those conversations are really never had. So I didn't understand. It was almost as if she was asking me to put powder on her feet. It was no difference to me at that time. It graduated when it was a situation that I got in trouble for with her because I had put too much powder. And in order for me to remove the powder, she said that I would have to do it with my mouth. And that was the first time that I had practiced oral sex on my aunt. And it just kind of went from there. Most of the sexual abuse with her wasn't her doing anything to me. It was always her wanting me to do things with her. I think my first memory of my sexual abuse, I think I was probably between the ages of 3 and 5. We were in Jamaica and we had a very large family home. And when my parents would go and doing whatever it is that they were doing, that's when my aunt would know it's her time to groom me and do the things to me. I do know that I must have felt at some point that something was wrong, or I didn't like it, or I wasn't comfortable, because there were times where I would hide in the cabinets until my parents got home. And because I would get hungry while I was in the cabinets, I would eat the raw pasta that was in the cabinets, which I got in trouble for that as well. So that was the beginning of my story. And my sexual abuse actually evolved into a full-blown relationship with my aunt.
Consensual.
Yeah. It was a full-blown lesbian relationship. And I did not know that it was wrong. I did not know that there was anything wrong with it, but yet I still knew enough to know that I couldn't share this with anyone. It was her and I's secret. Growing up in a Caribbean household, my parents came to this country really just trying to make it for their children. My dad was going to school trying to be successful. They really didn't have a lot of time for me. I was the only child for a long time. And I got that attention from her. She made me feel wanted. I was able to confide in her. And I just felt that in addition to everything else that she did for me, that this sexual experience was just kind of our thing. I never felt that it was a wrong. And even as an adult, I still didn't understand that it was wrong, because I felt that if I was truly a sexually abused person, or if this wasn't supposed to happen, that I should have felt some sort of type of way, or it should have been violent.
Right.
Because it wasn't violent, I thought that, maybe this is just what it is, you know.
And oftentimes that's how the perpetrator will groom the person to believe that this is perfectly normal, but this is our secret.
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
Can you give my water, please?
That's exactly what it was. I think, oh yeah, this is mine. That's exactly what it was. And the reason that I realized why it's so important to share that is because a lot of women that had those types of sexual abuse experiences are afraid to have those conversations because they within themselves are confused, because at some point it does become consensual. It got to the point where I would initiate. I knew that when she got into the shower and she was going to take a shower, that the next step was going to be she was going to lay on the bed with a towel underneath her, have the powder, and that's how it started. So I started to set it up because I just knew. I heard the shower because when we moved to New York, we had a home in New York and she'd live with us there as well. And I would hear her taking a shower. I got the towel, I got the powder, and I did what I thought I was supposed to do. As I got older, I remember, and I was in a relationship with a Jamaican woman, and we have a family home in Jamaica that she lives primarily. And I remember when we went to the family home in Jamaica, and at this time I was probably in my late 20s. I remember during the evening or the night, she came and she knocked on the door while I was there with my partner at the time, and it was like she didn't verbalize or say anything, but it was almost as if the routine, but what's going on? When am I going to? Yeah, and I was in my late 20s with my partner at the time.
Wow.
So I did not realize the impact that this abuse had on me until I started to see more awareness around it, and I started to really self-evaluate. I started to look at some of the traits of the thing or behaviors that people do or demonstrate that are sexually abused, and I was like, I kind of do those things. Is this really impacting me? I'm in a relationship with a woman, and now to date I question myself, if I was not groomed so young to perfect the art of pleasing a woman, would I be in a relationship with a woman? Would this lifestyle be who I am?
So let me ask you this, because I'm sitting here and I'm one thing that showed up for me is a lot of times parents don't make their kids aware of their bodies.
Right.
And making yourself aware, I'm not saying being all, graphic and, all of that, but I mean to the point that they know that this is their private parts.
Yes.
And not only giving them that example, but clearing up that it will respond. You know what I'm saying? That it will respond. And that was one of my things with my abuser. I mean, at some point I can sit here and say I liked it after so many times. It was the norm. I was thinking that this is what I was supposed to do. I liked that feeling that I was getting and everything like that, but then I knew it was wrong, but I liked it,
right.
And so when I was going through therapy, one of the things that I felt so ashamed of was my body responding.
Yeah.
And we are not clear that that's natural. Your body is going to respond. And I just had the pleasure of having a conversation with a young lady today, and I was telling her that when speak up. Yeah. I was telling her that with me as a kid, I wasn't taught that.
Right.
So as a woman,
right.
I know that when I'm beginning to have an orgasm,
right.
my body is responding. I didn't know that that's what I was doing as a younger, meaning I was getting turned on by certain things or whatever, because now my body. When you're a kid, they say the butterflies in your stomach.
Right.
As a woman, you about
to bust a nut.
Okay, she's here. Okay, the TV TakeOVER is here. The TV TakeOVER.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
I remember, it being some really great experiences. But when you think about it too, even women that are raped, violently raped, they orgasm.
Yeah.
It's a proven fact, and you think to yourself, well, how is it someone that is being so violently raped that they can experience an orgasm?
Your body responds.
Yeah.
That's just it.
Yeah.
Be clear with your children.
Yeah.
So they understand these things.
Yeah.
And they're able to speak on these things. and they can have the conversation with you about these things. Because see, sheltering your kids
Yes.
and keeping them, you know, from knowing
Yes.
only up the antics of wanting to know.
Yes. So as a mother of a 22-year-old son, and I have this conversation with him, and because I knew of my experience from a very, very young age, for him, I would make sure that he did not feel uncomfortable saying the private parts.
Mm-hmm.
So in our conversations, I wouldn't shy away from, you know, how some parents say, oh, the
Don't-
P word,
yeah,
or
don't be-
the private part.
No.
No, Marcel, that's your penis.
Mhm.
You know, these are breasts.
Right.
This is a vagina. So he would feel comfortable
Yes.
having sexual conversations with me. So I became that go-to person for my son,
Yes.
for him to be able to comfortably have those sexual conversations. And I also made him aware that there are going to be people out there that are going to tell you everything that you want to hear,
Yes.
so that they can have access to these private parts. And I want you to know that it's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if that does happen, have a conversation with me. Let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it in such a way where I didn't want to make him be afraid. I wanted him to just feel comfortable in having that conversation and just take that whole taboo of having those sexual discussions with him.
Exactly.
I remember the first time that I found that, you know, my son was watching porn, and when a conversation started, he kind of thought he was in trouble. And that wasn't what it was at all. I just was questioning him. So, Papa, I see that, you know, I was kind of going through your Google, the Google history, and I see that you're looking at some porn. I said, talk to me about that. What led to that? Were you by yourself when that happened? And it was a very calm conversation. It wasn't, why were you watching that porn? You know that's not for you. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You need to stop doing that. How dare you? You're going to be grounded. You're going to be punished. No.
That's Miss Angie.
You can't. But I felt that was wrong. You can't
Yes,
do
it
that.
is.
You know, because he was curious.
Yeah.
Clearly he wanted to know what was going on. And for me, I wanted to know, is this a natural, organic curiosity, or is somebody doing or saying things to you to now make you want to be curious as to, okay, so is this where this goes and that? And I also looked and saw the kind of porn that he was watching.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which was important because it also disclosed to me that my son was gay.
Okay.
You know, and that opened up that conversation as well. So not only did it allow us to be able to speak comfortably about sexuality and protecting himself in that way, but I was able to be a more supportive mom as to what could possibly be his situation, which is he chose a different lifestyle.
I gotta give you claps on that one. Cause I gotta give you claps on that one. And not many times do a lot of parents even embrace that whole thing.
You have to. You do not want your children seeking this information from their peers.
Yeah.
They don't know.
So here at Hosanna, we do a lot of community outreach, and when we do the outreach, we have we meet some of everybody, and I like to say I meet myself over and over
Yeah,
again.
you did mention that.
And when we're out and we're in the community and we're meeting people, stroll. You trying to find it? Oh, so when we meet people,
She said she got this.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
She said I ain't new to this. I'm sure of this. I'll talk for you, friend. I got your back.
So when we meet the people and you hear the stories, you hear so many persons are feeling this disconnect from the family. For one, about the taboo story.
Yes.
Two, about how they choose to identify sexually after they have been tormented with the shame and all that stuff like that of saying that they were touched. So a lot of the kids, high school, middle school, are dealing with not only their identity, they're dealing with they were touched.
Yeah.
And they feel so alone and so whatever, and then the parents and family rejects them.
Yeah.
And then they're out on the streets.
Yeah.
So I took my hat to you, girl.
I appreciate that, and as you were saying that, I was thinking of another scenario. So shortly after episode 6, when I shared my story, one of my viewers, Greg Jules, he reached out and he says, Jodie, your story motivated me. I would love to come on and share my story as well. And as you know, the taboo, while it's definitely a taboo just in general amongst women, it's even more so amongst black men.
Yes.
And this was episode 10, and he came on the show, and we found out at the end of the taping, that was the first time he's told anyone. Wow. So his mother, his sister, every single family member, with the exception, I think, of his partner, which is a woman, knew of his story. And one of the things that he said is he first started to discuss some of the behaviors that were common in him that he now knows that it's as a result of the fact that he was sexually abused. So it's the promiscuity, you know, having to thrust himself into being around nothing but women, having a lot of different sexual partners because he had to try to prove to himself that this is not what he was. And he was penetrated. He was penetrated at 7 or 8 years old for 2 years by an older teen. And it's very hard for especially black men to be able to say that because of the taboos around those conversations. And people assume assume that they're gay.
Yeah.
And how can you assume that somebody, a 7-year-old, is gay from somebody that forced him to have sex? So because of that, those conversations are not being had.
Right.
So now you had Red Table Talk that just came out with something. Common just came out with the fact that he was sexually abused. Yes, Keon, that was a big one for me.
Yes.
When they interviewed his wife and just his experience and the triggers for him.
Yes.
And I think for me, it was important because I'm realizing that a lot of certain moments in my life where I had breakdowns, I would think back now and I realized what the triggers were for those breakdowns. It was because of those experiences. And that's why I think for me, I'm so passionate now that I've kind of put myself out there and I realize what it's doing for me. And again, everybody's healing journey is different.
It's different, yes.
Not everybody's going to be able to sit here and have these conversations openly, and that's okay.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what your journey is, just start it, you know, and that's what I'm a proponent for. Just start it, you know, and that's what I love about your organization because it's, what's lacking in the community are people that are culturally competent enough to be able to handle these situations, right? Because when we see the Me Too movements, or not even so much the Me Too movements, but a lot of the other movements out there related to this subject, we're not seeing us.
Right.
And because of that, we shy away from it. I know one of the things that we talk about with your organization is, you know, pairing up people with therapists that they can relate to.
Right.
These things are important, and I thank you so much, you know, for dedicating your life to this. Because what a lot of us women, a lot of people as adults, what we don't realize or what we're not realizing is that a lot of the things and issues that we're dealing with in our life right now, it stems to that. It goes back to that. You know, whether you want to admit it or not. Even with Keon, he said that he had blacked it out.
Right.
He didn't even remember that this was going on, and his trigger was he was in a bathroom and a drunk man just touched him on his butt.
So when we started Hosanna for Youth, we were privy to have Keon as our very first guest.
Wow.
Keon came and I mean, he blessed us so much with his story, and to know that he's from here, it immediately created this relationship.
Absolutely.
And I when I saw him on
You had the first interview. Okay? Take that, Red Table Talk. You had it first.
Wait a minute, Jada.
This is your Facebook.
Yeah. Jada. But Keon, we love you in Fort Lauderdale. I gotta give it, but I don't want to take away from nothing. You did big things, making it to the Red Table Talk. But thank you for being a part of Hosanna as well.
We appreciate that. I appreciated that. That was a great story for me.
Was.
Yeah. Well, sorry, go ahead.
And and that's what we also like to do. This whole platform is to let people